Social Anxiety Hoarder, part 2 of it. And the first part was a lot. The second part, and I'm going out on a limb here, might be a lot. I actually like what Super Eyepatch Wolf is doing. I like he's covering it. But I also hate that it exists for him to cover in the first place. This is fun. I like this. And if I keep telling myself this, I still won't believe it. You guys know the deal. Links below. Let's hit it up.
But this video should not be taken as anything but a silly YouTuber talking about things they think are interesting. That's all. Okay, let's begin. You have chosen to take part in a study at your local college.
Here willingly.
Where you must
remember
match
that.
the line on the left with the corresponding line on the right, designed to test people's ability to visually approximate length. The first slide is simple. The answer is 2, and you feel assured in that conclusion when everyone before you answers 2, 2, 2, and 2. The next question comes and... This one's a little trickier, but after a moment, you can see the answer is 3. But it's here that something unusual happens. The person at the top of the table answers 1. Oh, that's unfortunate. He made the same mistake you nearly did. But then the second person answers 1. Wait, did they both get it wrong? The third.
Is this a study on gaslighting? Oh, that's... I mean, it's going to be funny, but also, and Zeo Dragon in the chat is reminding me that I need to still read 50 Shades of Grey. Ah! I don't know what I just hit. I'll need to fix that. Also, yeah, I know. I got the damn book. I burned my last copy, and I do not regret it. I think we were roughly here.
Wait, did they both get it wrong?
Oh, actually goes right.
Also answers 1. What? Hang on.
Yeah, we're in the right place. Also, Pilo in the chat said, I need to make sure to schedule a happy video after this one. Yeah, I think I did. I think it's Doug. I'm not sure.
Hang on, are they looking at the same test you are? The final person before
it's
you
probably a
gives
bunch of
their
people who are
answer
scripted.
Also,
and you're the test
1.
subject.
Okay, what is happening here? How could they all be wrong? Are they all
or is it only
wrong?
1 or 2 people?
Or is there something here that you're
monkey see, monkey
seeing?
do?
If you give a different answer and you're the only one to get it wrong, you're gonna look foolish.
For a normal person, I'm fine with looking foolish. I do it frequently. And there is actually an optical illusion where they do this, and it looks like it should be the shorter one, but it's actually the longer one, and you can make it look that way on purpose. But I don't believe this would be the optical illusion. So, ugh.
But if you're right, will the other participants think you're arrogant? Your breathing quickens.
Social anxiety. Yeah, it is the peer pressure.
The room awaits your answer.
But the test is to see if it would even affect you, huh?
What I just described is from a 1956 psychological study called the Asch Conformity Experiment. There was actually only one genuine participant in this study. The rest being actors instructed to purposefully give the wrong answer in a test
see if you're willing
not
to go
measure
against the grain.
line length, but a person's willingness to conform to a group. And the result was that a shocking number of people were willing to give the incorrect answer.
I don't see why this is shocking. And I don't mean this as a random aside to Super Eyepatch Wolf. I mean, legitimately, people go with the group because we take social cues. I mentioned monkey see, monkey do, but that's actually how a lot of our brain process works. In the idea of, this person did this and no one said they were wrong. Maybe they're right, even though what I'm looking at does not show that outcome. It's based on the idea of, person ate berry and didn't die. Neat. Or person ate berry and died. Don't do that. It's a very dumb way to explain it. I'm hyper simplifying this to an extreme extent. But the basic concept is we take social cues from people, which is also why they're testing here. Can you give incorrect social cues to do the wrong thing when you don't actually believe it's wrong or you know it's wrong? It pisses me off, but also at the same time, it's completely understandable.
Even in cases when the lines differed more than 6 inches in length. And when interviewed as to why they did this afterwards, some genuinely believed they had made a mistake and that the group could not possibly be wrong, while others knew they were giving an incorrect answer, but felt it more important to conform to the group. The results of the Asch conformity experiment have been replicated across dozens of different studies and variations, to the point that it's even become a popular format for hidden camera prank shows. In one example, a person enters an elevator full of actors, all of whom are facing the wrong way, looking away from the door and staring into the back wall. The person might face the right way initially, but you can see the discomfort this causes them, until eventually they succumb to the invisible social pressure and turn to face the wrong way.
This one is a little different because I think it's less the pressure and more looking someone directly in the face who you have no prior contact with can be very freaky to a lot of people. And then there's people who are social butterflies and they use it as an excuse to start talking. Those people scare me.
Like everyone else. In yet another, more extreme variant of this, a woman enters an optometrist's office, again populated with actors, all of whom have been instructed to stand to attention whenever a bell sounds. The participant doesn't know why this is happening, and you can see the look of confusion on her face as it does, until eventually she also begins to stand for the bell.
And the thought process here is, maybe they know something I don't know, so I should probably go along with it until I figure it out. Again, it's the monkey see, monkey do. Other monkey knows something I don't, so I should probably try and figure it out by copying them if they haven't died. Put this way, it's less you're doing something wrong and more, I don't know the situation, I probably should go along until I figure out what's going on.
But what's really interesting is what happens from here. Not only will the participant continue to stand for the bell even when all actors have left the room, if other non-acting participants are then funneled into the room one by one, what you will eventually be left with is a room full of regular people all uniformly standing to the bell.
See, he might be using his dramatic voice right now, but what he's describing is less monkey see, monkey do, and actually the creation of a tradition. It's not because we were told to do it at this point. It's because we've always done it, so we keep doing it. This is how this starts. That's actually the psychological process done fast, and it's kind of fascinating.
With no idea as to what the bell is or why they are doing this, as was observed in a study by Cornell University.
Cornell, we put people in rooms with bells. Is he going to blow up or something?
What I find so unsettling about these experiments is that they show, as much as we might like to pretend otherwise, we love to conform. So much so that we will do things that we know are wrong.
Sort of. The entire individuality versus collectivism thing is actually still debatable. And it's never all the way on one or the other, despite how some American side is more all the way into individuality, despite, needing collectivism or benefiting or actively using it. And then there's other side where it's more the Japanese collectivism, where it still has a very large individualistic streak. It's just not the most culturally relevant one, even though if you look at their media, there is a massive desire for it. Every single bad boy stereotype who doesn't care. And I'm specifically referencing a previous Super Eyepatch Wolf video where he talked about the wrestler whose entire aesthetic was, I don't give a damn about any of you. Yeah. So the conformity does kind of make sense because culture aside, people are still people. Those are still drives on one side or the other. It's not ever going to be completely missing. If it is, that's usually because someone has a broken brain and those people are, there's a reason it's that broken.
Take actions that don't make sense. And you could see how this would play into the strip search scams. The person on the other end of the line is definitely using some kind of inherent fear of authority, but combining it with this strange social manipulation, making this girl believe that she's causing trouble for everyone around her by not complying.
This is the weird part, though. She works at McDonald's, and she cared enough about her coworkers to not take the idea that she's actively hurting them as a good thing. Good on her. Good on all the other ones where it worked. Bad on everyone who went with it. And also, maybe I just worked at horrible places, but the concept of respecting your coworkers enough that you wouldn't actively try and dick them over was Yeah. I'm not saying they were cesspits where everyone was out to stab each other. I'm saying we did have enough sharpened knives for that to happen.
And so she did. He normalizes that idea among other employees, meaning however unfairly or cruelly they treat her, to them it feels justified because she's no longer one of them. And it makes me think of that moment from the lottery. Imagine being one of the people hurling those stones.
You're not the one getting hit, so it's fine. I still agree with the personal thing of if that woman had turned around and all the people making those demands of her, she had punched them the fuck out, I would see no problem with this. And honestly, I believe, depending on how far they got, any court of law would probably agree. Maybe, because that goes weird.
No matter how uncomfortable or even disgusted you might feel at doing this, would there not be some subtle relief in the fact that you're the
not
one
chosen?
throwing those stones and not being obliterated by them?
Yeah!
Some subtle glee in the fact that by doing this, you are proving to everyone around you that you are part of the group. You belong. You can see this dynamic play out in any number of historical atrocities, or more relevantly and recently, whatever social media mauling is taking place this month. And
what he's describing is essentially clout grabbing on the internet, or what is normally known now as being on Twitter. Yeah. It's not about being right. It's about making sure other people see you being right, or what your in-group would consider right. Because it's not enough to be on the right side or to be in what you think is the right side. It's that you have to get active validation to show other people showing that they approve of your actions. Which is also heavily implied by having an actual numerical value with the likes or retweets or other ways to indicate that people have interacted in a positive manner with your actions. Yeah.
I don't even need to point to a specific one, do I?
Nope.
You already know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you have probably even participated. That's okay. We're pack animals.
Are we?
It's literally how we evolved. Right back to the days when our ability to integrate into a strong group was the only thing between us and starvation or cold or hungry predators. Any perceived threat to that group had to be removed, even if it was one of our own. Those days are long gone now.
You sure about that?
But we still do this. And perception, humiliation, and paranoia, those are just the tools our brain uses to enforce that. And what it results in is this unspoken, invisible social pressure that we all do to each other. And the disturbing part is that if that social pressure is strong enough, it can erase us.
I've seen enough Super Eyepatch Roll videos. I know he's about to lead into the next content section. And it'll have to do with whatever he's saying. So, social pressure erasing a person. Erasing. I can speak today. Erasing. There we go. There's two different ways he can mean. Ego death, which is terrifying, or take out the ego from what I just said, which is also going to be bad. I don't know which way he's going with, and I'm absolutely terrified to click play, but I'm going to do it anyways because I am here for everyone else's amusement to suffer. Again, I find this fascinating, but I also find it massively depressing. It's like that mix of watching a car crash and knowing the person in the car. You're fascinated by what's happening, but also, oh dear God, it's little Timmy. Bad little Timmy stole $5 from me. He's a dick. He probably deserves it. But also, it's little Timmy.
The town of Stepford is a serene suburban dream, miles from the chaos and noise of the large cities, and that's
why do they have a mannequin with hair that's face is bandanaed? This is already weird.
That's why Joanna, her husband, and their children
This is a movie, right?
have decided to move here. Joanna is a loving wife and mother, but she's also a passionate photographer. She's interested in politics, social change, and runs women's groups. She has a life and identity that extends beyond the walls of her home, which may be why something about this town feels so wrong. It's not that the other women of Stepford seem unhappy, it's nearly the opposite. They are uniformly blissful in their existence. In fact, they all look the same, they all dress the same, they all act the same and speak the same. And any attempt to speak to them about anything beyond cooking, cleaning, and their husbands is met with blank stares and lingering silence. Something about this place doesn't make sense. Sometimes the women begin to act in strange ways, speaking nonsensically or repeating the same words or phrases. The only other seemingly normal woman in Stepford...
Oh, I think I've heard about this. This is the Stepford Wives, which is... I never actually saw either this movie or the newer one, but apparently there was a newer one. But wasn't the entire thing about this, they were actually just robots replacing everyone? I legitimately do not remember. I've always known the Stepford effect is like that creepy one of us aspect. It's just weird.
Is Bobby. Joanna and Bobby bonding over how strange this place feels, how isolated they feel from the other women. And so they begin to try and piece together exactly what is happening. And that is until, after a weekend away with her husband, Bobby returns, clad in the same billowing apron and dress, now uninterested in talking about anything beyond household products.
That is the most 1800s dress I've ever seen. It's actually a little off-putting, which is probably exactly the look they're going for. So well done on the producers with that costuming choice.
Indistinguishable from the other wives of Stepford. All that was fun and spirited about her, gone. The reason for this, spoiler warning,
I guess I should probably offer anyone who wants to get out right now the spoilers that I definitely didn't spoiler myself, because again, I don't actually know if what I said is accurate. We're about to find out.
Is that the women of Stepford are actually being replaced by lifelike robots, machines whose only desire is to cook, clean, and satisfy their husbands. And as Joanne struggles against this horrifying realization, she comes face to face with something truly awful.
Her robot?
The robot designed to replace her.
Oh, that's freaky with the black eyes. They just killed off the regular wives, or what else?
A ghoulish approximation.
Oh yeah, the eyes
she
are fucked.
Is, with swollen breasts and dead eyes. In the final scene of the movie, we pan across rows of identical shopping aisles filled with identical women, before slowly zooming in on this Joanne, now indistinguishable from the other wives of Stepford. Everything about her now hollowed and empty, her identity erased.
And that's probably why in the very beginning they had the doll or the mannequin hooked up, because it's what everything else was. Yeah.
The Stepford Wives was not well received when it first released in 1972.
Oh, this was yeah, I could see why, because the idea of conforming as a bad thing would have been very much not exactly what the society at the time would have gone for, because you either were very much a conformist or very much a hippie. So yeah, I could see this one not going over well with the people who had money, which was usually the more conformist side, because the people who were on the more hippie side were hippies. Although they probably would have loved it if they could afford a ticket.
Offending pretty much.
Also, I'm pretty much aware I'm being very dismissive and very reductive about everything I just said. Going into anything of actual detail, and that would be its own video, and frankly, way more depressing than I want to get into.
Much everybody, it was considered a lowbrow piece of garbage sci-fi, and to a degree,
it is.
I get that.
But
this is a film in which the central premise involves a group of men wanting to fuck a bunch of animatronic robots. However, in the years since,
I mean, isn't that basically the plot of Mad Men? I know what I said. I'm sticking to it.
The film has been celebrated as a cult classic, and I think the reason for that goes beyond its campy appeal, as it does touch on something really genuinely horrifying. This concept of depersonalization, the idea that you stop being you in the face of overwhelming societal expectation, and you can see depersonalization in action every day in your own life. Look at how you might act at work or school versus how you might be around your friends versus by yourself.
Unfortunately, I am the same at work as I am on YouTube. Unfortunately, again, that means I am the same at work as I am on YouTube. I have no idea how I haven't been fired.
It's very normal, but it's also kind of creepy, right?
Yes!
This idea that we are constantly overwriting parts of ourselves to meet the expectations of the people around us.
Although to put this in a more, well, humane and less creepy light, you fit into a niche within a social group that you like to perform into where it feels comfortable. In my own personal experience, that would be between two different families I've had. My parents got divorced when I was a little kid. That's basically standard American family at this point. My dad's side, I was more of the wild kid because there was a bunch of other ones like, oh yeah, they're doing all this shit. So I'm the more stayed back on one side. But then when there's a bunch of other people on the other half of the family who were more intellectually minded, I was the wild one. I know I said wild on both sides. Basically, in one, I have a perception there as being wild, so I played into that. I had a little more fun. And the other, I was more of the restrained and calm one, so I got to completely pretend like I had any idea what the fuck I was talking about. I didn't. But it was funny because people thought I actually knew shit.
And I think what's so disturbing about this final scene is the horror of coming face to face with the version of yourself that everyone else thinks you should be. Your inadequacies, your imperfections, your identity erased. This invisible social force we all feel transforming us into something we're not. Whew, now that's spooky. Good thing there isn't some even more extreme and creepy social experiments that...
Of course you are. Of course you're pulling up something that's even more creepy than the movie.
backs up this idea, because man, that would be pretty
The next thing you're
scary.
covering?
The smoky room experiment is a variant on the Asch conformity test.
Oh,
and again,
lovely.
involves a participant entering a room full of actors. The participant is asked to fill out a form, but as they do, smoke begins to pour into the room, with a fire alarm sounding, to which the actors have been instructed not to react in any way.
I hate how many times I've actually given these instructions in workplace environments, like a museum, or another museum, or another museum. And the entire concept is, if you hear the fire alarm and you're not on fire, stay where you're at. The concept being that if someone pulls the alarm and they're just doing it to steal shit, you probably should stay where you're at. On the other hand is, how close is the smoke? That instruction was a little more fucked up, and I just, don't worry, we'll definitely not pay for your funeral.
What's interesting is that if this test is run with a single person in an empty room, 100% of the time they will immediately exit the room. However, when placed in a room full of people not reacting to this potentially life-threatening scenario, well, what do you think happens?
The oddity here, of course, is that they're getting correct information based on a completely wrong conclusion. Because everyone else was told not to react to the stimuli indicating a fire, the person is making the accurate choice to stay there because he's not actually in trouble, because there isn't actually a fire. Even though he thinks there is, he's ignoring it. So it's lack of self-preservation. Granted, the test is also replicating, would this happen in a real environment had there been an actual fire? It's just kind of fascinating that technically he's right, just not in a way that matters.
What percentage of participants do you think will ignore the danger directly in front of them and continue with their worksheet? If you guess,
I mean, considering how many times this is just generally happening, it's I'm like, please just let me burn, it'd be faster. I'm assuming no one left.
as high as 50%, you were incorrect, because the answer is 90%. 90% of people.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, so he was going the percent who would stay, not the percent who would leave. So I said 0, meaning no one would leave. I'm actually surprised 1 in 10 people would actually leave. That is probably one of the most fucked up things I've ever said. Wow. Yeah, that's kind of dark.
People chose to sit silently rather than acknowledge that anything is wrong. But where this gets real,
Did they actually bring a fire?
bananas, is what happens in this particular study to the one person who raises the alarm. Very early on, one participant notices the smoke. He asks, "What's that coming out from under the door?" He checks the door. He declares to the room it's fire and immediately heads for the exit, only for the rest of the group to assure him he's supposed to wait here. And you can see he thinks this is insane. He places his hand on the door to leave.
Is he able to leave?
He pushes the door open and stops. He keeps listening to the people around him, and soon he sits back down with everyone else. The room filling with smoke as he does. He did eventually leave after 12 minutes, which would have proved difficult in a real fire, as he
Yeah. God damn. It does prove, though, that if you want to convince people they're wrong, just get a bunch of people to tell them the thing they want to hear. Or the thing they all say they're doing. I'm used to the idea of a con as telling people what you want to hear, so it's what slipped out there. This isn't telling people what they want to hear. It's telling people a lot. God damn you, Garbles. It's telling people a lie often enough that they believe it's true. And often enough here would be just other people in general telling them to believe don't believe your lying eyes. And he eventually did, but he came back. And Sean Fuldarg mentioned this is why people are wondering why I call it gaslighting. I mean, actually, the reason for that is because it was actually a movie called Gaslight. And it kind of just stuck, even though I've never seen the movie. And honestly, those kind of social movies, I can't do them, man. We're doing a little of that right here with the Super Eyepatch Wolf video. And you see how freaked out I am. This is not something I do for enjoyment other than Super Eyepatch Wolf's commentary on it. But if it was just this directly, I would freak out way too much, man.
would be dead from smoke inhalation. And
Yeah.
the thing is, people have actually died this way. A 1979 fire at a Woolworths in London killed 10 people, all of whom were located in the shop's restaurants.
I mean, there's multiple examples of this happening well more recently than this. Historically and within the last decade, I think, was it 2 or 3 years ago, there are multiple buildings where people were in factories and they were told to keep working because you had to keep working even when the place was starting to catch on fire, and they were told to keep working because keep working. It's usually factories, but it's a thing. If everyone else is told to keep working, you keep working. And if you're on fire, keep working. Maybe you'll survive and you'll be able to turn out enough product that they don't actually lose revenue. I hate how everything I just said to someone out there would sound like a good idea.
A London firefighter claiming that the reason the people didn't make it out on time is that they were waiting to pay for their meals, none wanting to be the first to break this social taboo. And
That's what kept them in? I thought it would just be some random bullshit. They wanted... Good on them, but also, I think you could come back to pay later. London, really? Okay.
leave. That's how powerful the idea of depersonalization can be. It can override something as primal as our own survival instinct. And
But also this is tied into the survival instinct of, if you see something and no one else is freaking out, maybe that means you don't know something about it, and freaking out would be the bad thing to get rid of the survival instinct. Again, they're all kind of interrelated. So I guess this is an example of where the survival instinct is being misattributed. In the same way, biologically, that allergies are your immune system fucking up with non-dangerous things.
oh, it's a good thing there's no horror film based on that idea. Speak No Evil begins with our protagonists Bjorn and Louise holidaying by the poolside with their
How come every time there's a horror movie, they just put in this like off sepia tone that looks so off? Oh, okay, never mind. I see why they do that.
daughter, which is where a man approaches Bjorn and asks, is the sunbed next to him free?
What?
And despite the fact that it obviously isn't, Bjorn's things are all over it, Bjorn, rather than create an awkward moment, gives it to him. This man is Patrick, and over the course of the holiday, Bjorn and Louise have several more encounters with him and his wife Karen.
Yeah?
And you know what? Patrick actually kind of rules. He's
Oh.
friendly and outgoing, and he has this boundless love and enthusiasm for the world around him.
But
when he finds out Louise is a vegetarian, he raves about how great that is, how she's saving the world. And when he hears about how Bjorn
oh, this guy's a sociopathic murderer, isn't he? It's one thing to be a vegetarian and go off on how awesome you are. It's called being an asshole. If you have to aggrandize your own personal choices, and that way I would say that regardless, and vegetarian just is the one that's a joke right now. But for someone else randomly doing it, it's like, that is weird. I would actually get freaked out by this. In fact, I would now question everything Super Eyepatch will have said about him being a great guy. This would freak me out so much.
spent the entire day recovering his child's lost toy, he tells him that's incredible. He tells Bjorn that he's a hero. And to Bjorn, this means a lot. Bjorn has spent his entire life doing the things he's supposed to do, and he's tired. He's tired of smiling politely.
This guy's going to ask him to do something horrible, and because he has the out now of being given positive reinforcement, he's going to do something terrible, isn't he?
Tired of going to dinner with people he doesn't even like. But then,
why would you go to dinner with people you don't like? Maybe this is just me not being good at the social thing, but I am very much okay with saying, no, fuck you, and walking away.
There's Patrick, this loud, confident, uninhibited man who...
Again, the reason he would probably appear like he loves life so much is just the perceived confidence, which people gravitate towards, because if you act like you know what you're doing, people assume you know what you're doing. It's why if you ever want to get someone to listen to you, you look them straight in the eye. Doesn't matter how you're dressed. You address them directly, because it's a dominance thing, and it shows that I'm not trying to look away. I'm not freaked out. You speak in level tone and say, hey, this is what's going on. I need this. This is why I need it. Can you help me do this right now before I need to contact someone else? And then we could do it that way, but this would be faster. You can just bullshit your way through a lot of things by just acting confident. Or if you want to go someplace, just walking in and acting like you belong there. It's stupid, but perceived confidence actually matters so much. Even if you're actually in a position where you are exactly where you need to be, doing what you need to do, knowing the information, have all of the right reasons to be somewhere, if you're walking around like, okay, this is, the more stutter you have in the way you speak, it doesn't matter if you're saying the dumbest shit possible, it'll be perceived as the dumbest shit. It doesn't matter if you're saying the smartest shit possible, it's going to be perceived as the dumbest shit. But if you could say the dumbest shit possible in a very strong, confident voice directly to someone without flinching and making sure that you know exactly what you're doing is completely the right thing, people will listen. They'll have not the slightest clue what you're saying. But more often than not, they'll believe it because, well, he seemed to know what he's talking about. Maybe I should listen. I don't know where this is going here, but I have a feeling I can figure it out. I'm not going to like it.
sees something in Bjorn, and that means a lot to him. Over the course of the holiday, the four become friends to the point that later that year...
Four? Oh, Bjorn's wife, yeah. Oh, not Bjorn's. It was Bjorn, his wife, Guy, and Guy's wife.
Bjorn and Louise are invited to stay in Patrick and Karen's rural home in the Netherlands, and while it's a little odd to be invited, they decide to, because after all, it would be rude not to.
Honestly, it seems like it would be less rude and more you actually want to be with this guy. Also, I have no idea what the rural Netherlands is like. Everyone I know from the Netherlands has the same... Actually, no, never mind. I don't know anyone from the Netherlands. I know a few people from Finland, and their general thing is, oh, yeah, I'm having a great day today. I've only thought about ending it all twice. It's blissful. Yeah! Yeah! I thought that was a joke, and then they told me, no, that's accurate. Also, that is the exact tone of voice they do, and I cannot replicate it accurately, so... Again, yeah.
Bjorn and Louise make the long drive with their daughter, and when they arrive, things seem okay, but as Patrick prepares dinner,
is that a human roast?
something unusual happens. Patrick insists Louise try his roast boar, but remember, Louise is a vegetarian and she says no, but Patrick ignores her, and the moment just hangs in the air. Before finally, Louise relents. It's just one bite of boar after all, it's not a big deal, but later at dinner, when Louise again points out she's a vegetarian, Patrick says this. Oh, yeah, so good for the environment, but you eat fish, right? So you're not a vegetarian, you're a...
I mean, yes, but also who cares? Oh, because he's being a manipulative asshole, that's why.
pescatarian. He then continues to drill her on the damage the fishing industry does, and it's uncomfortable.
Actually, yeah, well, there is issues with the fishing industry. It's still not as damaging as the more sustainable farm fishing within there, because apparently it does horrible things to the genetics of the fish where they actually kind of get really fucked up. Yeah, not the way I thought that would go. Yeah, overfishing is an issue. Eventually get around to it, but...
Comfortable. Whereas before, being a vegetarian was this defining part of Louise to Patrick, now it's like he's taking that away from her.
And we are seeing both the con artist and the cult leader going here by making you want their opinion of you because their opinion of you initially was aggrandizing and made you feel great. And now you're getting the social pressure of, well, you like me. You want my opinion. Here's what you need to do to keep it. He's going to have them either commit murder or sacrifice people at some point, and I don't like this.
And the problem is that it's not the only thing. Patrick is still
pushing their
friendly.
boundaries.
He's still fun, but he can also be so odd. He belittles Bjorn and Louise's country. He smokes in front of them without asking. He expects them to pay for expensive meals. He drives them home drunk and ignores them when they scream at him to turn down the music. The longer Louise and Bjorn stay in this place, the more bizarre Patrick and Karen's behavior becomes. Patrick will use the toilet while they're trying to take a shower. He lets strange men watch their children. He gets inappropriate with his wife in front of them. He screams and manhandles his child. It's like Bjorn and Louise are constantly being put in these scenarios where they should say something. They should point out how inconsiderate Patrick's being, but they also want to believe everything is okay.
Partially because it's weird and partially because... they liked him. He said nice things about them. It's one of the reasons that, for example, romance scams are a thing. People are told everything is great. I love you. You're beautiful. This is amazing. I don't think your crippling depression is in any way a problem. And honestly, the last part's great. But... the fact that it's part of a scam is telling people what they want to hear and never thought they would hear, and then you can get them to do other things. And this feels like it's a lead into something horrible. I've mentioned I'm assuming some kind of murder is happening later.
They don't want to acknowledge the crawling feeling that something is not right here, even if it means enduring things they shouldn't.
I mean, to be fair, if it was me and someone tried to walk in on me when I was taking a shower and they were using the bathroom, my first response would be, okay, I'm getting out a bat, mostly because my aim with a gun is so bad that I do not have one, because again, I would be more likely to hurt myself than anyone else. Yeah. I've been on a shooting range. I know how bad my aim is. No thanks. I'm just as bad with a baseball bat, but there's a limited range of things I could fuck up.
And it's torturous to watch. It's like someone made an entire movie out of that line from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's hard to believe that fear of offending can be stronger than fear of pain.
Why? Pain ends. Offending is as long as you're alive.
But you know what? It is.
Oh, yeah.
Late one night, after
never seen
being
that book,
intimate
though,
with
or movie.
Bjorn, Louise discovers that their daughter is no longer in her bed and finds her sleeping with a naked Patrick and Karen.
Yeah, this is the point where murder would be a good option.
This is the breaking point. Louise and Bjorn, disturbed by whatever is happening here, flee from the house in the early morning. And
No, this is not a flee from the house. This is call the police and beat the fuck out of them.
as the viewer, the sense of relief you feel as you watch their car race past the Netherlands countryside is immense.
Which is only going to be followed by someone popping up in the back seat or being at their house when they arrive or somehow appearing at night and her walking away. I just...
Louise and Bjorn have followed their better instincts. They've avoided some strange, ambiguous danger and now have the rest of their days ahead of them.
But
as we cut to credits to the sound of Bon Jovi's It's My Life.
But
only that's not what happens. That's not what happens at all. Bjorn and Louise's daughter has forgotten her teddy bear back at the house. Against every survival instinct within them, Bjorn and Louise turn the car around.
Are you fucking serious? Because they established that he spent a day finding the teddy bear early on, so his entire self-esteem was built around the compliments he got from... This movie would piss me off. Like, a little bit here, a little bit there is weird and asshole-ish. And honestly, the pooping while you're showering would be a absolute nope, not dealing with it. Weird is one thing. That is an I'm not dealing with it line. You find your your daughter with naked adults. And it's already that weird guy you're a little creeped out by. You leave. You get another bear. You get another doll. That's fine. You're not getting this one. It probably has things on it that we are not going to be able to wash out at this point. I am not dealing. Unless the first response is, oh, I'm sorry, dear. We can't find your doll. It's in the ashes somewhere. I don't think I'm going to agree with a single thing happening from here on out.
And drive back to the house, and waiting for them are Patrick and Karen, who act heartbroken that their friends tried to leave without telling them.
And because they defaulted back to general human, they can fuck with their heads so they stay again. Social pressure, man.
Louise tries to explain. She tries to tell them how something here just feels so wrong and that you can't take another person's child like that. But Karen and Patrick politely, gently explain it all away.
And because they're flipping the script and getting rid of the underlying issue of we're weird and creepy as the immediate in-your-face thing. Oh, sure, all the previous ones are still there, but everyone doesn't see the previous actions. It only is what you did last. To put a more positive spin on this, Robert Downey Jr. What he did last was a lot of the Marvel movies where he was part of the better aspects of Marvel. And, Iron Man. Prior to the first Iron Man movie, his reputation was essentially slightly worse than everyone in the picture right now. He was the bad boy who lived a more depraved life than Tony Stark did in the comics. And Disney and Iron Man rehabilitated his image by showing the character who basically was the character in real life. And then they just had him do nice things and keep doing nice things and not being a horrible, despicable douchebag. So they're flipping the script in the same way in this one, except here we can assume that there's no actual personal growth. It's just, we're telling you what we know you actually want to hear because you're uncomfortable confronting us with the bad shit. Also why I think using a baseball bat or other means of violence would have been a perfectly good example when their head is by a floorboard. Maybe move them to a curb and stomp a few times. I think that would have been a viable option and gets rid of whatever is about to happen after this. Meh.
Hey, your daughter was upset and we just wanted to make sure she was okay because after all, you weren't coming. This is all just a big misunderstanding. There's nothing going on here.
But
so surely it'll be okay if they stay for just one right.
I will never be able to watch this movie. Not because it would scare me, but because I am the guy who would not be able to say, shut the fuck up, quietly. I would be shouting it at the screen in a movie theater. I mean, I'm infuriated on this. And to be fair, it's actually a nice change of pace from all the other things that he was pointing out, because this is just a movie. Unlike everything else he's done so far, where he pulls up something fictitious and says, that's horrible. It would be horrible if it happened in real life, right? And then he shows us the real life thing. So, yeah, that's fine. This is fine.
It isn't.
Spoilers. Spoilers end at 53 and 32 seconds. Okay. Look, I'm not going to say you have to watch the spoiler section, but you're missing some really good shit here. Some real video essaying. I think you can take it. I believe in you. Well, I don't, but I'm going to do it anyways.
After enduring the most horrific day of their entire lives, Bjorn and Louise have had everything taken away from them. Their daughter, their clothes, every personal boundary and sense of self-preservation. They know they're about to die here, but they do nothing. And the fucked up part is that Patrick and Karen don't even have any weapons, but they don't need them. They have so thoroughly dismantled these people, peeling back the layers of who they are and leaving them as these naked, quivering husks. It's in this scene that comes the most chilling moments of the entire movie, when Bjorn asks,
why are you doing this? Because you let me.
What's so disturbing about this moment is that Patrick is right. Bjorn and Louise are these people who have been molded by the perceptions of others, afraid of anything that might lead to the slightest instance of humiliation or offense. And because of that, they've spent their entire lives existing within the social expectations of other people. And all Patrick and Karen have done is weaponize that. They've weaponized the process of depersonalization. They've manipulated these people's inherent desire to conform to the point that they can no longer even see the danger right in front of them.
And they let themselves die at the end, of course. And that's still less fucked up than I thought it would be. Yay for that. Also, oh God. Yeah, this movie would piss me off. At so many points, I'd be shouting, fuck it, leaving. And I don't know if I mean to the characters or me, because subjecting myself to this level of stupidity is pissing me off.
And what kills me is that this is the exact thing we saw in the smoky room experiment. And it's such a disturbing implication. It's like all it takes is the right assurance from the right people, and we stop perceiving reality.
I would go further and say the right people doesn't even need to be a thing. It just needs to be someone you have a net neutral opinion of. As long as you are not intently disposed to disagreeing with them right away, you don't need to actually even trust them that much. It's just, random stranger did this. Okay, maybe there's a reason I don't know about. I should listen.
Correctly. Which brings us to this really chilling idea. Other people are not a part of our reality. They are our reality. I'm not going to do that thing again where I pretend that there isn't a film that explores this idea. There just is, and we're going to talk about it now.
Nope. No, I'm cutting this one. I just there is an anime that did work on the premise of perception of you is reality, and I do not remember the name of it actually. It involved the concept of time travel and that the bad guy was beaten by everyone failing to acknowledge he existed, so he didn't exist. Spoiler? Honestly, it came a little last minute and it's fine, but it was a cool show and I do not remember the name of it, and I wish I did because I would gladly recommend it because it had such a distinct art style that even though it's quite old at this point, it holds up because of the distinctness of its art style. And I'm definitely focusing on that right now, because focusing on this is enraging. Because every step of the way, yes, the premise is I'm just going to push you a little further, a little further, a little further. And you don't like uncomfortable aspects. You don't like pushing back. So you let it happen. And even at the end, they're being left out to die because someone didn't want to make them feel bad. Pisses me off so much. Just going back for that goddamn doll. And that's also the same reason they didn't want to upset their daughter. So they went back for the fucking little doll. And all of it was built on, well, this guy said nice things about me and I felt good for once. I'm enjoying this. As weird as that might sound, I am. I am fascinated by everything Super Eyepatch Wolf is talking about. But it is enraging. So you guys know, there'll be a link below to the video. Hit it up, and I'll see you in the next one.